Microphone check 1 2 1 2 and threes and fours. This is the Blaze the Lion podcast. I am your host, Blaze. Blaze the Lion, Blaze Goldsmith, Blaze Doctari, Blaze the Machine. I haven't said that in a while. And the list goes on. Indeed, indeed. This is season 4. So we're still in season 4. And for this month's theme, October, our question is, why fathers? Why fathers? And that question can be perceived as negative. That question can be perceived as engaging, motivating. Maybe that question just gives off a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions. But I felt it was just so necessary to dive into fathers, into fatherhood, and not planned, not on purpose, but nothing is by coincidence. It just so happened that all the dads that I've interviewed this month have been Black fathers. Black fathers matter. And not just because I'm a Black father, partly because I'm a Black father, but all fathers matter. And I feel like I'm about to go left with this whole all fathers matter. But I just felt, regardless, it was necessary to speak with fathers away from June, away from the commercialized Father's Day and all of that. For it's Father's Day every day, it's Mother's Day every day, straight up, right? So this is the theme for this month, and right now this is episode 83. I think you guys can correct me as you normally do, but I think this is episode 83. I felt like Joe Button. I don't know if you all watch the Joe Button podcast. He never knows what the episode number is. So, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. All right. So those who are loving the movement, man, and you want to be a part of the Blaze the Line podcast, right? You see these tees, right? You see the apparel, the Blaze the Line podcast apparel. You see the logo design and all that. If you want one, I got you. Well, as long as you got me, then I got you. All right. So we got some levels here. We got some tiers, right? So right below on the screen, right? We have 3 tiers. We have $1 a month, $5 a month, and $9. Well, $10 a month rather. And if you go to anchor.fm/blaze the lion /support and show your love, right? Be a monthly contributor. Well, you get this for free. Right? You don't even got to pay for it. Right? You can also send your donations to $Blaze the Lion as well. Not that I'm asking for any money, but I'm just putting it out there in case you feel led to give. Then I shall partake. Indeed, indeed. We are live right now on YouTube, all right, at the Blaze the Lion podcast channel on YouTube. And in some pockets, we are also on Facebook at the Blaze the Lion podcast. Indeed, indeed. So for season 4, this will actually be the last episode of this current theme. Season 4, Why Fathers. So this is technically our theme finale right here. So I felt, not to give any pressure or any added pressure to my guest, all right, though he is operating in his smooth bag right now, calm and collected. But I really wanted to end it with someone who had a different perspective, with someone who not only was a father, but someone who supported other fathers, someone that was somewhat of a visionary and a leader to other fathers, and someone who just had a right spirit. Indeed. So I felt it was necessary and it was timely to have tonight's guest on. So without any further delay, as I love to do, tonight's guest, the leader or a team lead who spearheaded this vision of having cool dads at cool church. None other than Rodney Bowen. Welcome to the pod, my brother.
Thank you, King. Appreciate you for having me and that oh so kind introduction.
Indeed. So, I shared a little bit about yourself, just a little bit, but
hmm
for those who may not know, share a little bit about yourself to the audience.
Uh, what is there to say? I am originally from Chicago, relocated down to South Florida in 2014. Been down here ever since. Born and raised in Chicago, one of two kids, two boys, to a single mother. um, and that has really shaped and molded, I think, where I currently am at and how I look at my life and the things that I want to accomplish and do. Um, I'm married to two wonderful, been married for 8 years, um, two wonderful young kids, a little girl that's about to be 6, and a son that's 4. I work in higher education. I've been doing that for uh, what seems like 15 years now. Just passionate about being there for and helping people uh, reach and achieve their goals. And it's kind of walked me into a leadership standpoint. But I just really want to be there for people. I love to listen. I love to provide insight where I can. And I understand that sometimes people just really need an ear. So that's really a big passion of mine. Other than that, um, love going to church, love God first. Um,
Yes.
really has shaped and molded me through every phase as far back as I can remember. All thanks be to my mother for providing the foundation for that. Um, and in my spare time, you can catch me in front of the grill, doing some house projects, or just kind of hanging out, spending time with my kids, spending time with my family. Nothing more important to me than that.
Mm. So, as you were speaking, a few things caught my attention, and
hmm
one of those is this famous phrase that I hear all the time, where they say, "So when you watch a award show, right?
hmm
And your favorite rapper or your favorite rapper's rapper or the most ratchet rapper, whatever it is, right? And they go up there with the entourage, right? And by the way, this is not a judgment on music, right? I'm not judging, for I listen to all types of music, right? So,
I know where you're going.
okay, right?
I know where you're going.
And they grab the mic, and the first thing they say is, "First, I'd like to thank God, because without him, none of this ratchet gangster music would be possible."
Yeah. Yep.
So, when you said God first, I'd like to hear from you. What does God first mean to you?
The foundation.
Hmm.
Um, the foundation on which I try to do and model everything. Some people say perfection is the key. I don't really necessarily think that for me personally, that's something that we would be driving ourselves crazy on a daily if every day we were
Facts.
trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to be a little better than I was the day before every day in
Yeah.
every space that I can possibly control. But um, I come from a space where for me, being in church, having a relationship with God, going to God in prayer has always been a foundation for me. And I think that based on how certain people view that, there's a different, I'll say, agenda that people approach it with.
Mm.
And over my years and my journey, I've come into contact with multiple people who have seen the seen in many different ways. I think that I just kind of sit somewhere in the middle. I'm trying to focus on being better, to give as much as I can of myself, try to be blessings to others where I can, um, and incorporate, you know, conversations about God's goodness as part of the journey. Um, but I know I've been in spaces too where I've seen people that have tried to force that on other people, and I personally, that's not necessarily me. Um,
Yeah.
you know, everything ain't for everybody. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think that you have to, you know, everybody for the most part that I know I've come in contact with in my journey, whether it was God or not, you believe in something. Um, and if you don't, then there's a high probability that more than likely you're lost on this journey. Um, but you know, I try to focus on controlling what I can do. And for me, in the work that I want to do, how I want to be viewed, what I want to give, um, for me personally, God is part of that journey, foundation of that journey.
Yeah.
And I would say simple, for me, I guess that's simple.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, being a father is hmm, comes with so much. And when I became a father, I thought I had an idea
Mhm.
until I became a father and realized I had no clue.
As
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. So no matter how prepared I thought I was, or how ready I thought I was, there are plenty of times where I'm sitting there, I'm not ready for this. I don't even know what I'm doing. How am I supposed to? Blah blah blah. So, share with the audience just a little bit about your starting journey, your beginning journey as a father. The eagerness or the anticipation or the fear or the joy, whatever was associated with that beginning journey.
I think it was all of those feelings, man. To
Hmm.
to be honest, no one's ever ready for it.
Hmm.
Is there anything that life really throws our way that we're ultimately ready for?
Hmm.
I still remember the night that my wife told me that we were going to have our daughter, like it was yesterday.
Hmm.
And having when my daughter was born, everything changed. I would actually say from the moment that I found out I was going to have a daughter, everything changed, because at that moment, immediately it became about caring about somebody else, that at that point, I couldn't even physically touch at that point, but everything that I did, at that point, was for my wife and was for my daughter. um, I looked at approaching things with care, taking my time with things, everything that I did, all the research. I wanted to make sure everything that I had for her was the best. Um, More than likely, really overdid when I look back on it. Um, but it just was, when my daughter was born, that was one of the happiest moments of my life.
Hmm.
Um, and, every day is something new. I'm still learning, every day, especially now that she's older and kind of finding her own space and her own little personality and
Hmm.
attitude. And it's a challenging thing to navigate at times, but I just try to give my best to it. And I think that for me specifically, based on my upbringing, which I kind of talked about, coming from a single parent household and not really having a father there, to me, that relationship was always super important. And I couldn't wait until I had that moment to actually be a father, to do what I realize now was ultimately like a almost a trauma response.
Hmm.
So I kind of overdid, based on what I lacked, or what I felt that I lacked when I looked back over my life. And I think that there were lessons to be learned in that. But for me, I would say everything changed for me as a man, when I had my son, or when my wife had our son. which
Mm.
was 2 years after that. Because what I'll say is that I grew up in a single parent household, um, but I just recently reestablished my relationship with my father, and the only reason that took place was because I had a son, and having a son that first year helped me understand the value of the relationship between a father and a son.
Mm.
And I felt personally that I couldn't give to my son what he deserved if I couldn't repair, what I felt, was the damage that had been done. Is it a perfect situation? No. And will it ever be perfect? No. But it's helped me love my son, appreciate, guide, mentor, um, and provide what I feel is a firm foundation and a solid relationship for me and my son. And he also gets to see my interactions between me and my father. Because there's a difference between the person that's carrying the same blood as you, the same DNA as you, versus I've had many of men over the years that, from being in different spaces, sports and, school and, church for that matter, that have fathered me, you know what I mean? Have mentored me, have guided me, have tried to shape me. But it's a whole different thing when you're actually interacting with your father.
Yeah. Last week's guest, DJ Smooth, he spoke about, he said something that hit me. And he said, as men and as fathers, we feel that the grandparents and the grandfather is supposed to take the lead in establishing a relationship with our kids. And he said, no. He said, when you have kids, the roles reverse. Now it's actually time for us as fathers to lead that relationship and to make sure that we facilitate that bond between our kids and our parents. And that just got me because I was a bit standoffish, a little
Hmm.
bit like,
Hmm.
well, my parents better make an effort, you know, because it's their grandkids and so I was a bit like in my feelings a
Yeah.
little bit, and I realized when I make the plan, um, my dad. So when I make the plan for my dad to be included with my son, with his grandson, uh, my dad, he never says no,
Hmm.
but he doesn't necessarily like initiate it.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to kind of take my ego out of it.
I tell you, that's something that I would have to work on, because I actually would have been more inclined to side with you,
Hmm.
in terms of, um, I can understand I can understand his point though, because somebody has to bridge the gap.
Hmm.
And is that going to be you? But I would say if you're in a situation where where your relationship with your father isn't necessarily the best, um, then it kind of becomes a situation where, as much as the connection is for them, it's also for you. And I know, like, thinking back to the beginning of trying to navigate the introduction between my kids and my father, um, there was a lot of, concern, uncertainty, about his ability to show up.
Mm.
Um, and if he didn't show up, not the impact it would have had on my kids, but the impact it would have had on me.
Mm.
Because historically, I was always without. I was always waiting for him to show up, waiting for him to come through. So the track record really wasn't the best.
Yeah.
But I'll say that when that connection was made, the interaction between my father and my son was organic, pure. I mean, the first time that my son met my father, he didn't want to leave his side. It was like they had known each other for years, and my son was like
Mm,
2.5 at the time, two and a half, something like that. Immediate connection, right?
mm,
Um, and it did so much for my spirit. It did so much for my heart to see it actually come together like that, because for so long all I was dealing with was the anxiety that he was once again not going to show up, not going to deliver. So um I can see the space that, yeah, I mean, I can agree, now that I actually talked through it with you, that yeah, there's a responsibility there. But I think a lot of it is if the relationship isn't the best, or even if sometimes it is, but there's just, we covet our kids in a different way.
yeah.
Like it becomes like, okay, this is mine, the same way that you would think that our parents would have felt about us, with their parents. So I think that, person to person, it becomes touchy to kind of navigate.
Hmm.
But I think that that is a very interesting perspective, with a lot there.
Yeah. I had never heard that, nor did I want to hear that.
Mhm.
But when I heard it, I said, man, we got some work to do.
Yeah.
Not that my relationship with my dad is not good or anything. But you see, I was judging my I was judging my dad's behavior
Hmm.
with my son off of my mom's behavior with my son.
Okay. Okay.
And it's a different
Yeah.
energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same way I don't expect my son to judge or rate the love that his mom has for him versus the love that I have for him.
Hmm.
It's not to be compared, right?
Yeah.
It's different, right? But it's still love. So yeah, and I mean it. With fathers especially, there comes responsibility,
Hmm.
and that responsibility can have trauma that is attached to it. It can have the resentment.
Yeah.
It can have unfinished business that we hold on to and don't even realize that we're holding on you know, to
Yeah.
feelings that we had like as a child.
Hmm. I would say for one Father's Day, this was before we had our son. I think my daughter was maybe one and a half, something like that. I remember, like at that point in time, I was still, I'm still finding myself, but I
Mhm.
was very early on in the process, and I just remember, like I said before, my whole world when I had my daughter was my daughter. Like that was, I just poured and poured and poured everything I had. I tried to put into that. And I just remember, I think it was my first or second Father's Day, just literally being like, I just don't understand how a man could not be there for his kids.
Mhm.
Like, and it was something that I just carried with me. Like, and like I said, I felt like, you know, and I think in many respects, the more I talk about it, it probably really was a disservice to my kids,
Mm.
for me to lead how I handled fathering them, um, with the trauma that I was carrying. Um, because now that have been in a state of healing, um, I see so much, I see better results out of the relationships. I see things being nurtured a little bit better. I see um, interactions better, and just communication overall. Just the time that we spend together is more valuable. Um, so it you know that was a hard lesson that I had to learn. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people end up in spaces like that. You don't really realize what you're carrying until there's some type of trigger that like
Hmm.
finally helps you connect the dots, and you're like, oh, okay, that's this,
Yeah.
or that's because of this. And then, but I would say in this moment right here with you was the first time that I probably ever analyzed, like, hey, did I actually like
Mm.
do a disservice in this
Mhm.
process by like overdoing, and in many respects setting an extremely high expectation for myself, um, that probably in the grand scheme of things didn't matter. Your kids just want you to be there. They just want your attention. They just
Straight
want your love, and show up for them, right? But I was so used to the person that I wanted not showing up for me that uh I think that I sacrificed various spaces. There were other things in other spaces of my life that I didn't show up and wasn't present for because I was willing to sacrifice everything that I possibly could to be there. Nothing was more important than being there for every step of the way. And I think there's value in that, but I think that you have to create balance too. It's almost like giving over giving, in a certain area of yourself that eventually it reaches a point you can't continue to sustain.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
With with that in mind, do you was there ever a time? Can you think of a time where you felt that as a father in any space and to any kid, or even on the inside, that you overdid it, that you were maybe a little bit too intense, a little too
yeah,
much?
yeah, I think I still overdo it. Right? Um, I think that when I look back on it, um, my parents were married when they had me. My parents got divorced when I was young, right? So majority of my life I was raised solely by my mother and my grandmother. Um, and early on, I can remember some of the times, like I was super young, like younger than my kids are now. But I can remember back to times where like my mother was always the disciplinarian coming up. My dad was much more lenient and relaxed, and I think that I found that in some spaces I can model that behavior a little bit. So I definitely believe in providing structure and stuff like that, but I think that in certain spaces, I probably have with both of my children,
Mhm.
that I probably should have acted in certain situations, to provide better structure than I probably did, and probably I just took a checkbook out of my dad's book of just being a little bit more relaxed, in spaces. And I think that sometimes that translates to your kids thinking that they can claim more space than they actually really have.
Mhm.
And sometimes there's down the line, consequences when you actually do step into the ring and assert yourself, and they're like, well, no, this isn't going to happen. It's all about that conditioning. So I learn a lot of things daily from the fathers around me. I know some really exceptional men, you included, that um, you know handle their kids in a loving and caring way, and I'm very observant. So I try to pay a lot of attention to that, and always walk away with something that I think can enhance the relationship between me and my kids. It's every day is a continuously growing and learning. So yeah, there's been some hard times, shall I say, some tough dad moments. Um, but I try to keep it in line as much as I can.
Yeah. We and many times we overdo it because maybe it's something that we didn't get
Hmm.
from our parents. So we're like, all right, well, with my son or with my daughter, I'm going to make sure. But then sometimes we kind of OD. It's like, well, too much of it could be causing harm too.
Yeah.
So
But
balance is true.
I also try to think about, like, as my kids get older, like, what foundationally do they need to have, especially given the fact that the world that I grew up in and that we grew up in is much different right now, and
Yeah.
will be much different in 10 years when my kids are teenagers, right?
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where, like, you got to find balance. Like, there's a lot of things that they have that are beneficial, can be used the right way, are advantageous to them, but a lot of those things can also be used in a way that can be harmful to them. I see
Hmm.
it with, you know, family members, nieces and nephews, godchildren, things like that, that are older, that, the way that they are able to conduct themselves, the way that, the things they have access to and the resources, um, are much different than, you know, I'm an 80s baby. So back in the 80s, the early 90s, it's different for my kids, and, in the, 2030, it's going to look a lot different. And how are we going to adapt to that? And how does the values, the morals that we give our kids, and the foundation that we help lay for them impact the choices and the situations that they eventually will be in 10 years?
Yep. Indeed. Indeed. It's perspective too, right? Because I remember as a kid, there were certain times where I thought that I knew it all and
Hmm.
that I had this, right? Especially like the preteens and the early teens. Like my parents don't get it. Like they don't know. And they're saying, we've been on this earth way before you. We've seen a lot. This ain't it. This don't look good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, y'all don't know anything. Y'all tripping. Um, but so there's definitely that generational gap, right? Um, where it would be certain styles that as a young kid I wanted to do, or types of music or whatever, and my parents were like, nah.
Hmm.
And then now as a father, I'm looking not even just at my kids, but I'm looking at just people in their 20s.
Hmm.
All right. So here we go.
Hmm.
This is how you know that you're old.
Yeah.
All right. Where I'm 41. All right. I know I look like I'm 26 out here, but I'm actually 41. All right. And I'll look at 21-year-olds and look at how they behave and look at where they go, and I want no parts of it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, uh, how do you? And then I catch myself, and I'm like, you want to hang with the old folks. You want to hang with the grown and sexy. And it's like, man, so if I'm looking at that for the 20-year-olds, my son is 5.
Hmm.
So there are going to be tons of things that he wants to die for, that he thinks are so important. And I'm just not going to get.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to get it. And that's that journey, right? Where you instill your wisdom and your experience into your child, but you still give them that room
Hmm.
to see life from their perspective and to grow and to figure it out too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
uh,
You just hope that the wisdom that you're giving them is
yeah,
absorbed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So now let's go into the differences beyond the obvious differences, but let's go into maybe the mental differences or the emotional differences or just the personality between boys and girls, between your son and your daughter. How fun is that?
It's it's very fun. My daughter is very reserved, um, very skeptical, um, practices heavy discernment around people.
Mm,
Is and but once out of her shell, very strong-minded, very bright. Once when she gets comfortable. But my son, he's just a passionate go-getter. Wears his heart on his sleeves. And I see it. I see fight in him, in a good way. Always wanting to be better. Has one crazy competitive streak, but
mm,
he is, they're both really helpful. Um, you even see it in like their behaviors at school, their behaviors in spaces with other kids. But in terms of like their interactions with each other, uh, I think they're equally yoked in getting under each other's skin. So nobody, having siblings, nobody can really irk you like your siblings. It's just
oof.
uh it's a beautiful it's a beautiful thing that only happens in spaces like that. But um mentality, I think that I sometimes I see um my daughter I think my daughter is more like headstrong.
Mm,
My son, I feel like, questions himself sometimes, though. So I think that he overcompensates sometimes by being, with that fight and that competitiveness in him to really try to do separate himself from others. I think sometimes to like prove to himself that he can claim the space that he's currently in. But both, I think this, as any parent thinks about their kids, the sky's the limit in
yeah.
terms of what is. And I think that, as a father, I'm just trying to do the best that I can to help them find their passions and just continue to put everything that I can into, getting the most out of the things that they're interested in.
Yeah. Yes. So indeed. So I want to have a little fun here.
Okay.
Not that we're not having fun, um, but I want to raise the fun bar just a little bit. Um, so um, I have a portion of my show or a segment of my show called Color Time, right?
Okay.
And normally I would, I would start off with Color Time, Color Time, and do a whole thing, which I just did anyway. But so Color Time is where I'll give my guests certain colors,
Okay.
and they'll just share what that color means to them. So for this theme of why fathers, right, on fatherhood, I've been going to the fathers and asking them questions regarding colors and their children.
Okay.
And lo and behold, every father on this podcast has bombed this segment.
Okay.
So,
The
no
pressure's
pressure,
on. Now the pressure's on.
actually, extreme pressure. Um, so, I don't know if we're going to go 0-4 in this theme, or you're gonna be the victor here. But I just find it interesting that all the fathers on the pod are very involved in their children's life, and some have been involved. Some have kids that are in their 30s
Mhm.
and their 40s, but they just could not get the colors right. So we shall see.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready,
All
as
right,
I
here we
love
go.
her be.
Here we go. Here we go. Do you know your son's favorite color?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You
What
want
is
it?
it? Yeah.
Blue,
What kind of blue?
royal blue.
Mm.
At least that's what he'll tell you right now. And the reason he'll tell you it's royal blue is because that's what his dad's favorite color.
Uh,
That's an easy one. It's got to be more challenging than that.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. What's your daughter's favorite color?
Pink. Even though
Hmm.
my wife would wish that it wasn't. Right now, that's what it is.
Why so?
Because she's very much into the glam and dress up, and a lot of the shows and books that are being socialized to kids right now have that are about focused on little girls have the little pink and purple themes. So and then when she was a baby, her colors that we had for her, every parent typically has colors. It's a theme
Hmm.
for the kid, was coral and teal. um and coral, as she's got older and older, translated pretty well to pink. So um yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. That's interesting. Um, how passionate or how often does your son's favorite color show up in his interests?
Hmm. I would say pretty often. He typically caters more towards blues and reds. So I wouldn't say royal blue specifically, but I would
Hmm.
say a color within the blue family is pretty prominent. Like, he's at the point now where he dresses himself.
Hmm.
So by dressing himself, he'll typically pick out reds. I like green sometimes. And I try to incorporate greens, golds, other colors and stuff into his options, but he typically will come out in some form of red or blue.
Mm.
Typically, is as a kid they lock in on certain things, and his favorite thing in the world is Sonic. So um, like you know everything.
Sonic
So
the Hedgehog?
Sonic the Hedgehog, man, that's his thing right now.
Hey,
I'm not
hey.
I'm not mad at it either. So
I used to love Sonic back in the day, man.
I mean, if you haven't watched those movies, they're they're pretty incredible. I was shocked myself. So we get a lot of Sonic time in this family. It's a lot of Sonic in his room. So that correlates really well to the blue as well.
Hmm. So I'm about to drop my age. Well, I mean, well, I already did, but Sonic reminds me of the early 90s when I had a Sega Genesis
Hmm.
game system and Sonic and Tails and all that like that. I was highly addicted.
I think we all were, man. Still to this, I think I might even have a Sonic video game now on one of them systems,
Yeah,
one of the newer systems. Just like go back and go a little retro. Sonic is
yeah.
classic. I didn't expect the movies to be. It actually comes up in conversation a lot of the times because like whenever he's with me, he's always talking to somebody. He's super engaging. Like I said, he's really outgoing, so he'll bring up Sonic all the time. Um, so he'll bring up, oh, I got on a Sonic shirt, or, oh, I have a Sonic, toy, or whatever it is. But it's really interesting how like really good like these Sonic movies have been.
Mm,
Um, like and I think that it's dope to be like Sonic was a thing when I was a kid. You know
mhm,
what I mean? I'm only a couple years behind you. I'll be 38 in a couple of weeks. So like it literally is, like I played Sonic on Sega, as a kid too. So, um, and before that, it was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and like these are all
mhm.
things that I see him now into, and like
Yeah.
really, really into, and like it is literally like the best thing for me to like be able to like, because I'll gladly sit down and play with Sonic, figurines and stuff like that, because that's good for me and him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's pretty incredible to see it.
Isn't it pretty uh interesting how they bring back, hold on, Star Child Social. Um who is our sponsor of the Blaze Line podcast?
Hmm.
That answer, is that in response to you having a Sega Genesis too? Just curious.
I think
So
we all did.
listen, I was die hard Sega, like die hard until Sega just had to give up. But I was like, forget Nintendo, forget PlayStation. Like I was like Sega till the end.
I would say that for right now, for me, one of my favorite systems, it was Sega Dreamcast. I think that was like my all-time favorite. Like if I could find one right now and it cost as much as like all these other systems do, I would totally get it.
Mm,
Because it was literally like that to me was like the system
mm.
um, before everything that everyone's on now. But honestly, I don't find a lot of time for that. But I would still
Yeah,
get it.
yeah, and it's very interesting how they bring back a lot of the characters, right? So
Hmm.
um the Ninja Turtles is big, and it's like back in the late 80s, early 90s, like that was life. We all wanted to be ninjas.
Yeah, for sure.
We had our weapons, our size, and our swords, and we had our little tree house as the HQ, and
Hmm.
um,
ate a ton of pizza.
I
Ate a ton of pizza.
wonder if that is why my favorite fast food is pizza still. I wonder if it came from.
Could be, man.
Hmm,
There's still a lot of fun to be had in a lot of those old movies and those old
yeah,
shows and things. That's why they
yeah,
won't let them go because there was just I think there was a now when you watch a lot of the new content just for any show, you see that it can often be catered towards um, like us, right?
totally.
They make it entertaining for the parents who are sitting there with the young ones, right? So, but I think that, and I could be wrong, but from what I remember, I feel like back then the shows were just for us. Like,
Mm,
like my mom never sat around, my grandmother never sat around and was going to entertain, watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with me and my brother or anything like that.
mm.
That wasn't it. They would get it for us, but
Right, right,
that was never it. But yeah.
yeah. Indeed, indeed. So there's this thing, right? There's this thing that I am a part of, right? And
Hmm.
um, and you're a part of it too. So I want to tap into this a little bit.
Okay.
Um, cool dads.
Cool dads at the park. Yes, sir.
How did this? When did this? Why did this? And more.
So cool dads, cool, has always been around. Um, and if anybody wonders what cool stands for, it stands for created out of love. Um, and cool dads is a subset of or a group within a group of men that attend cool church. Um, and that's where me and my family go. That's where we worship um, under the leadership of Terrence and Joanne Wilson, phenomenal individuals, phenomenal leaders, phenomenal individuals of God. And uh, I I would say that Cool Dads at the Park is basically, long story short, it's a connect group, just for I wanted to find a space for um, men that were fathers, specifically of young kids, but it just doesn't have to be of young kids. Like it, I felt like what's something that we as fathers could do? What are natural things that we do with our kids, especially those who have young kids? And for me, it's often, in South Florida, just trying to find places um, to things to do with my kids on the weekend. And typically, my wife spearheads a lot of that. One of the things that I noticed that we were doing throughout the pandemic a lot, and recently, it's just been like going to parks. For the most part, it's free. Even though there's some really great parks that you can go, you pay a little cover to get in. But kids are entertained, and I felt like it was a great space to get together, at church with other men who were there spending time with their kids. We could get together, our kids could get to know each other, build relationship, and we as men could get together, talk about fatherhood, talk about what's going on in our lives, support one another, and
Mm,
maybe find out things about ourselves for people that are dealing with similar things, um, and trying to figure out this whole fatherhood situation and how to navigate it. And like I said, earlier, like for me, it was never every day I'm just trying to be a little better than the day before. I'm trying to give a little more than the day before, and just trying to figure it all out. And I knew that there had to have been other people that were on that journey. So I connected with another one of the brothers that I'm really close with at the church, that I've met along the way, and just asked him, was he interested? Does he think like something like that could be something that we could grow? And he was all for it. He's a phenomenal dad too. So, we agreed to do it. And I have to be honest with you. I did what was, I committed to what was on my heart,
mhm,
which was creating that space. But I wasn't always confident early on that anybody was going to show up. But I told myself that regardless of if anyone did or didn't, I was going to be there, and I was going to continue to show up. I was going to continue to do this for me and my kids' relationship, and then hopefully I'd be able to find like individuals. And it just so happened that we connected that one Sunday.
mhm,
And I was able to tell you a little bit about what my vision was for the group and what we're going to try to accomplish, which was just really spending time together, getting to know each other, building brotherhood, and being committed to being, better fathers, and it's super impactful. And I think, to be honest with you, even though it's been I think we've met like 4 times or something like that thus far. I feel like we're well on our way to accomplishing that. Having great conversation, I think supporting each other. The kids are doing well, and I think that especially like if they go and they play at the park together on a Saturday and then they go to church together on a Sunday, there's connections to be made there. So I think that
yeah,
um, I think it's good for all of us. It's good, and I've been part of different groups, but I've never been part of something like this. So it's
mm,
definitely something that I want to keep going. I have to say, in the first meeting that we had, just to see the group of guys, there's strength in numbers, no matter how small, and just for us to show up and just be able to engage, and just to hear people say like, I really needed this, type of thing, really, you know, really
it's
made me.
needed.
It is needed, right?
It's
And
so necessary.
I was questioning it, man. I think that we all go through those spaces when you want to start something that's new. And everyone that I talked to had always said, like, those feelings are natural. It's gonna happen. Just show up, commit. And
Mhm,
that's what I remained prayerful about. I was gonna show up, I was gonna commit, and wherever it took me was where we were gonna go. And I'm, elated to where we're at, elated to the people that I met along the way, and I hope we can continue to grow, as we continue this. So yeah.
yeah, I am so happy for it. I even forgot how it happened. I don't remember if Pastor T mentioned groups, like connect groups
I think
in
so.
in the sermon. I just know when I went outside, and that was my first time back at Cool Church in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
I
yep,
hadn't gone there in maybe 2 or 3 years. And I just decided that day that I decided the night before, I say, you know what, Hendrix, we're going to church tomorrow. And he's like, okay, whatever. Um, and after service, I was like, man, cool dad. Like, this is necessary. Like, this is just dope. I don't know what it is. I don't know who's involved. I don't know who's going to be there. Um, but just the concept of it just seemed like so necessary. So being able to actually meet you and to bounce ideas off of you and just to share our journeys with each other, all while having our kids
yeah,
frolic and play and
hmm
act like life is so grand. Um, I want to say on this public airway that I would love to support you, whether I'm there in person or not. But this is something that I've realized that I too am passionate about and can become even more passionate about. So I want to see this thing flourish. I want to see this thing grow, not for ego or not for
hmm
monetary gain or any of that. I just know that a safe space for fathers to be themselves
hmm
is so damn necessary.
and it is, and I think the beauty in it, and I'm sure you've recognized it, but everybody's so different. uh
Yeah.
it's so, like, I look forward to it just as much as my kids do. My kids are excited to come, play with your son and with the other kids that are there, and they look forward to it. We talk about it. It's not one of those things where it's a drag. And I
Mhm.
think that the beauty of it too is that the weather is always cooperated. So like, Saturday, we've been in a rainy season and whatnot. My
Mhm.
concern is like, oh man, it's gonna rain, and it's not gonna go. But I wake up at the same time every morning, get my kids together. I'm in the car, we're driving down, regardless of what the weather says, and we
Yeah.
always get there. Everything cooperates. The kids have fun. Um, you know, the one thing I learned, I need to start bringing snacks and beverages, but we'll we'll get that together
Yeah,
for them.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, for sure.
But yeah, other than that, it just it it's important for me personally to let other men, other fathers know that, like, we're all figuring this out,
Mhm.
and we can do this together. You don't have to do it alone. um and so honestly, every foundational message that I had up until the point in time that I committed to saying that we were going to do this, um it's all come together.
Mm.
Everything's laid out the way. Every concern that I had, every reservation, when I was right there saying like, but no, just being like, all right, I'm not, even if there's a ounce of doubt within myself, I'm gonna let it be. I'm still
Mhm.
gonna do it. We still gonna show up. And I think that it's, it's been an empowering lesson for me, just personally, on how to set your doubts to the side, which is natural, and just focus on committing to doing the work. And then eventually, it'll see itself through. So, brother, I'm glad to be connected with you, and to have that space. I'm glad that our kids get to meet and know one another, and spend some time together. And yeah, I want to continue to grow this too. So
Yeah. In society, in America, I can't speak for many other countries, um, but what I've seen is men. Like I feel like back in the day, right? Men had mentors,
Hmm.
right? Men could look up to different organizations, different groups, uh, the movements, right? And they could see examples of powerful men.
Hmm.
Whether they agreed with the agenda or not, there were so many examples of units and groups and teams of powerful men. And nowadays, I feel like, where's our tribe, bro? Like,
Hmm.
where can we see upstanding, powerful, positive examples of men? Again, not bashing the entertainment industry, but it's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's not meant to educate, it's there to entertain. So they're going to overlook values and morals and laws and blah blah blah, right? It's to keep you glued, to entertain you. But I
Hmm.
feel like that's taken the place of mentorship. So I feel like these pockets, these, call them small groups, could really be powerful, man.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if every church, or not even just to say churches, imagine if different companies, different organizations had their version, or had pockets of cool dads, or just men that took time out to just build and reflect with each other.
Hmm. Yeah.
Life changing, man.
It is. It's it's been a wonderful experience. Um, and like it's one of those things that um, you're happy that you committed to doing it and seeing it through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yep.
Mm-hmm. Huh, indeed, indeed. So vision. I am a visionary, and you have to be a visionary as well in certain capacities to lead, and in just being a father. So, what is your vision? What do you envision, um, for your kids?
Hmm. Uh, I think that it's something that
Unfiltered.
yeah, it's something ever changing, right?
Yeah.
That continually is morphing every day. But I would say at the top of that is I want my children to understand they can achieve anything within their wildest dreams. But also I want them to have a father that is present and have parents that are present and that are invested and that are nurturing and that are speak life into them and that encourage them, and really lay a back to the same word, lay a solid foundation, that allows them to go wherever it is that they want to go, man. The sky's the limit. I know that everybody says that, it's so cliche, but I really truthfully believe that I see little glimpses of my kids having multiple things that they can do. Um, like I said, we're still at a point where we're trying to narrow down the things that they're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
and guide them into those experiences. But I think seeing love and seeing a father that has a thoughtful approach to how he interacts with your mother, to see a value of family, to for my son to see, um, a positive male role model, right? I had to go outside of, in some respects, I had to go outside of my family. I had to go outside of my home to find and search those things. I want that to always be within arm's reach for my kids, and um, that's something that's just really important to me. Um, so to be present, and guide them, and always be there with good advice, and a listening ear.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very important. My son is simple, so sometimes he'll ask things of me, and they're really quite simple.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes I don't do them, but the requests are quite simple. Where I'll say, okay, this weekend we're going to have fun this weekend, right? We
Mhm.
have all these events planned. We're going to go to this event and have fun and food and games. And then we're going to go to this event. And then the next day, your cousin has a pool party. We're going to do that. And I have this fun filled weekend planned. And by day two or by the evening, you know what my son says?
Hmm.
He's like, Daddy, um, so when are we going home?
Hmm.
And I go, what do you mean? You're not having fun? We're not going home. We have this plan and we have this and that. And I'm like, why do you want to go home? And he goes, I just want to play a game with you.
Mhm. Yeah.
I just want us to go in the room and to play the Ninja Turtle game or to fight or to watch the show that that I had told you about, or he just wants that bonding time.
It's important too. Literally, I want to say probably 30 minutes before we got on here, that's what I was doing with my son. He wanted to play swords and shields, and we were running around the house,
Yep.
wrestling, and that's fun. Before that, outside, my daughter wanted to just learn to ride her bike without training wheels. So she wants you to come outside and watch her ride her bike. It's very simple things. That's why I
Yeah.
say present, being present, right?
Hmm.
As parents, and just as adults, we can often get distracted. There's often sometimes things you just don't want to do. You don't want to be bothered. You let something in some other space of your day kind of adjust your mood, and now it's kind of, you need your time to unwind and whatnot. And at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to balance getting the space that we need to handle those types of situations, but not denying our kids. I never want to have to be in a space where my child wants material things is one thing, but when you just want my time and I can't give it to you,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, in interactions with your kids, time is free. It might cost you in other spaces, you might have to sacrifice, but you know I've done the career thing where I've shifted from one position to another to create better work life balance so that I can be present for my kids. So you know not everybody is always in a situation to do that, but
Hmm.
I think there are other creative ways, um, that we can look at, or that we should look at, to make sure that it's much easier to give a slow yes, um, than a quick no.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because even Dad, I want to play with you. Let's make a puzzle or whatever. Saying give me 5 minutes is much different, because you need that 5 minutes to go unwind and take it. Whatever is different than being like, nah, I don't really want to do that right now. You know. So
Yeah. There's a song by Bizzle.
okay.
And for those who don't know who Bizzle is a, and I hate to put people in a box, but I'm only saying this so they can find him. Bizzle, Bizzle, is a Christian hip hop artist.
Hmm.
In my opinion, a very dope hip hop artist, period, with a plethora of different albums. However, there's a song he has on one of his albums, and us here talking, I remember that song, and I think the song is called From the Outside.
Okay.
I think so. And it's on I think it's on the Crowns and Crosses album from Bizzle.
Okay.
And not to make this too long-winded, but basically in that song, yeah, every verse he speaks about social media. So he speaks about Facebook, then Instagram, and I forget what the third platform is, but basically he says, from my social media posts, it would seem like I'm a great dad, um, that I'm the best dad in the world. But then when you zoom in on my life, you see my son and I playing ball, but I got my phone in my hand.
Mm.
And it was like, ooh, you know, you would think that I'm the best husband in the world or whatever. Um, but you don't realize that sometimes I still struggle with lust,
Hmm.
and I may visit certain sites. So he goes deep with it,
Yeah.
right?
Not perfect. He's not perfect.
Right.
Mm.
And it was just like, man. So sometimes when I'm playing with my son, um, he does two things. Well, he does various things, but when he knows that I have to work, right? Because I have all these different jobs and careers and all of that, right? So there are many times where I'm on the computer, I'm on a Zoom call or meeting, or I'm on my phone. And I'm not like playing games on my phone or just scrolling. I'm actually working on my phone, right?
Hmm.
So when he sees me in the living room on the computer, he won't really bother me. He'll peek his head and, okay, daddy's still working. Okay, excuse me. Um, but when I'm on my phone, for him it doesn't translate that it still work. So he'll say, "Daddy, well, let's go play this game and let's go do this." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then sometimes he will say to me, um, "But put your phone down."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Bro, he's 5."
Yeah. But this technology is part of their upbringing, though. Like this is part of their world. They will know nothing but this. It'll only, get more intense. We remember a time with rotary phones and before. I
A
remember the first.
phones and all that.
I remember the first cell phone. I remember back, getting those cell phones where all you could do was everyone had the same cell phone. You just had a different color case. There was no texting. I remember when everyone talked after 9 o'clock because that's when everything was free.
Yeah, free nights and
Free
weekends.
nights
Yeah,
and weekends. Like
yeah.
we all those different spaces that these kids will never know about call waiting or landline phone like that. That's foreign to them. There's everything right now is in the palm of their hand. My son can probably navigate through my phone better than I can. Daughter too, right? And the biggest thing for me is I would say that I'm not big on the documentation part, right? Um, I'm bigger on the experiences
Hmm.
um, that I have with my kids. So, like, I was one of those that, even though technology, and social media has been big for us, as we've gotten older and had kids, for me, it was like, I don't want to put my kids out there. I don't want to take all these photos. I don't want to do all of these things. Right. So, like it's cool if other people are doing it. It's just not really my thing. I just want to live in the moment,
Hmm.
right? Because I have what I consider to be a pretty good memory where I can remember things. Like I don't always feel like I need to spend all my time documenting, because I'm often like, if I'm spending all my time documenting, I'm not present.
Hmm.
And that being one of the biggest things for me as a father, it's like I want to be present. I can't be present. At least that's my feeling. I feel like I
Hmm.
can't be present if I'm trying to get every angle. You know what I mean? And then honestly, what am I think about it from the perspective, what am I then doing that for?
Yeah,
And
it's
that's the hard thing, uh, to navigate. Me and my wife are so different on that, right? So there are some times that I'm like, I want to be present and she's documenting, and I'm happy that she documented, right? Because you have that moment, you have that information. But I feel like sometimes it can go a little overboard, and I think that
yeah,
it's appropriate for us to find balance in that.
yeah, for sure, balance. I take tons of pictures and videos of my son, tons. And what you see on my social media is really only an eighth, like
Yeah.
1/8 of. I take it up. I'm like, listen, I always wanted a son.
Mm,
I finally got a son. I'm gonna save these memories. So a lot of the stuff I don't even share,
mhm.
or I may share a year from now, or 6 months from now. And I don't do it to show, hey, I'm a good father. Look at
Yeah.
me. I'm spending time with my son. Um, I don't do it for that reason at all. I really do it for me.
Mhm.
Um, just because I'm just happy that I get the opportunity to be a father and to have a son. And I just kind of want to share or open up people to the joy that I have.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I get it, where I still have things where it's like I don't want my son to be too involved in my social media,
Okay.
where I won't create a page for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, a little too much. I don't, I really include him in my reels and all that kind of stuff because I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to gain followers off of my kin or I'm trying to, blah blah blah. Not saying anything is wrong with that. Like you do what
Yeah. You
you
do
you
what you do.
feel. Yeah, yeah. Just saying for me. But every now and then I'm just like, this is just joy that I want to share. Now,
Yeah.
do I share the bad? No, not because I want to paint this perfect picture.
Yeah.
No, but I don't share the bad parts of parenting because I don't want the advice and suggestions that are gonna come with that. Like, oh, your child is sad. Well, this is what I would do if like I don't want a long
Yeah.
list of
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna post a picture and
Yeah.
keep it moving. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
man. So Rodney, in closing, what message do you have for the fathers out there? You have fathers in different capacities in different scenarios. You have fathers who haven't really had a fair shot in being involved in their child's lives. You have fathers who have various kids in various states and countries.
Yeah.
Um, you have fathers who, right, CCC, you feel me here?
Not at all. No advice needed.
Right. Um, so this is not advice here that we're gonna share. um, but anything, any gem, anything that you have to share to dads in all forms.
uh, wow. I would say, uh, we all need a little bit of encouraging, or a lot of encouraging. Um, so I think that no matter where you're at in the journey, um, just don't give up, man.
Mm,
Um, just don't give up. There's somebody on the other end of the work that you have to do, whether that work is, um, you know, healing in a space of your life, whether that work is, repairing a relationship, whether that work is humbling yourself
mm,
in a space that is very foreign, and doesn't feel the best. Um, you know, give what you can give, and do the work necessary, because there's somebody on the other end that is relying on you, counting on you, loves you. Um, and I just would, continue to say, just don't give up. Every day is something different. Every day offers something different. Um, so I think that as long as every day you get up and you're doing the best that you can, and you're giving, what you have, you're giving your all, it'll be well received,
mm,
and you'll find joy in that.
mm. Indeed, man. As a bonus, favorite cartoon lyric as a child? Go.
Lyric, I don't know. That's on. I can't think of that one. Cartoon, favorite cartoon. I give you favorite cartoon. Hands down, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
Like hands, like you're talking about like bed sheets, pajamas, the pizza. I mean the van, Shredder. Uh, all the figure. Like you think about it, I had it.
So
My
you should
life
know the
was
lyrics.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hey, he was
So
gonna have turtle
Turtle
power.
Power. Favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Uh, Clearly, Leonardo.
Ah,
Leonardo.
ah. I felt that was a majority.
I mean, I wouldn't have normally. So I saw pieces in all of them.
Yeah,
I like the rebellious side of Raphael.
that's my son's
Uh,
favorite one.
yeah, I like the rebellious side of Raphael. Leonardo, I think, because just from the leadership standpoint, even
Yep.
though sometimes he was just really wrong. Like he like straight up, like looking on it, he was just wrong. But the one that intrigues me the most was Donatello. Because Donatello was the smart one. He really
Mhm.
was the one that if you look back to it all, he really kind of kept everything together. And I think he was forward thinking. Um, and this is cartoon, so I'm probably getting way too deep. It's
No,
not
no, no.
even, but
But he was a
but yeah,
visionary.
yeah, right. So I think
Yeah,
that there are values, and then Michelangelo, he liked to have fun. He kept everything relaxed, right?
yeah,
Without him, everyone else is so uptight, and probably would
yeah,
have had, he probably had an element of glue too, because without that balance, that ability to laugh in the midst of all the chaos and always trying to be serious and in all these spaces, it probably would have fell apart. But when you put all four of those qualities together, we got one powerful unit. Donatello was cute. That's interesting.
you going left, Stacey. You-
um, but but yeah. So yeah, I was that. I mean, all day long. Um, so yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, bringing me back right now.
Hmm.
For sure, for sure. But Rodney, I want to thank you for your time, man. I want to thank you for your expertise. I want to thank you for just being real with it, man, and just sharing some of your stories, some of your traumas, and some of your battles, your
Hmm.
apprehensions. and success. For it's all part of the journey. It's all needed. It's all necessary. Same with this theme is also necessary. So I really do feel honored that we were able to have you on the show as a featured guest.
Yeah, I
Truly.
appreciate you too, brother. I appreciate you for having me, for having a space like this to generate these types of conversations. And I will continue to support you in every way that I can, man. It's been a
Mm,
pleasure meeting and knowing you. Thanks for having me.
mm. For sure, for sure. This was episode 83. The replay will be available on YouTube. As soon as I click that end button, you can watch this replay if you missed any parts of it. The audio version will be available on all major streaming platforms, your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, all of that. That'll be available tomorrow. And for the audio version, we're actually streaming currently in 29, 28, or 29 different countries. So we are moving, we are growing. So tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a damn friend about the Blaze the Line podcast, man. Share this episode. If this episode touched you, if it nudged you in some ways, if it made you feel all warm inside or it made you feel uncomfortable, um, maybe we need a re-listen or rewatch, and just share it, man. You just never know whose life you can be impacting with this episode. So I thank you all my loyal listeners, for my contributors monthly, and just those who believe in the show, in the movement. We started this in the pandemic on Instagram, not knowing, and Facebook, not really knowing how to run a podcast or how it was going to really turn out or what. And we've had lots of ups and downs on this pod. We've had such interesting guests on this pod. It's been quite a journey for real. So I appreciate all the listeners, all the subscribers, each and every one of you. You all play a vital role in this movement. And my purpose of this podcast is not to just shine light on me, even though I do think that I'm awesome, but my purpose is to create a platform for others to share, um, to share their gems, to share their journey, and ultimately showcase others who have found their purpose and and walking in their God-given purpose. That's extremely important and powerful to me. So indeed, indeed. Well, this was the Blaze the Lion podcast. Tune in next time for our next theme and much more episodes and events coming your way. This was the Blaze the Lion podcast. As we always say here, go in peace and love. Bless you.